I'm getting married in 2 weeks and just witnessed my fiancée do something that has me questioning everything I thought I knew about the woman I'm about to legally bind myself to. She lied. This was a calculated, immediate lie to her brother-in-law Marty about his wife Evelyn's whereabouts. And now I'm stuck in this weird purgatory between maybe I'm overthinking this and holy crap, what family secrets am I about to marry into? Wedding planning is stressful enough without adding amateur detective work to the mix. Let me walk you through exactly how this all started. The phone call that started everything. So picture this completely ordinary Tuesday evening. I'm out back fixing this stupid gate that's been driving me nuts for months because apparently my brain thinks home improvement projects are the perfect stress relief when you're drowning in wedding chaos. The sun's going down. I'm actually feeling pretty good about life. And for once, I'm not mentally spiraling about vendor deadlines. I get thirsty from all the manual labor and head inside to grab some water. Nothing suspicious about that, right? Just a guy getting a drink in his own house. But as I walk through the back door, I can hear my fiancée talking on speakerphone in the kitchen. She's chopping vegetables for dinner and having what sounds like a totally normal conversation. The voice coming through the phone is immediately recognizable as my soon-to-be brother-in-law Marty. We've known each other for years now, and the guy has this distinctive way of talking that you can't miss. Marty asks where her sister Evelyn is because he's been trying to reach her all afternoon and she's not responding to any of his messages. Now, here's where things get weird. My fiancée responds without missing a beat that Evelyn just left our place and should be home within 30 minutes. She says it so casually while continuing to slice tomatoes like she's giving him the weather forecast. I walk into the kitchen, grab a glass from the cabinet, and ask what's going on. She tells me Marty was looking for Evelyn, and I watch as she immediately starts typing on her phone. When I ask what she's doing with her phone, she explains she's texting Evelyn to let her know Marty was trying to find her. I fill my glass with water, sit down at the kitchen table, take a sip, and that's when my brain finally decides to show up for work. Because here's the thing that's bothering me. I distinctly heard her tell Marty that Evelyn was here at our house. Evelyn was definitely not here at our house. The last time we saw Evelyn was yesterday, when she came over to help with some last-minute centerpiece assembly that turned into a 3-hour crafting nightmare. The red flags start waving in my head. First, why is she texting Evelyn and expecting an immediate response when Marty literally just explained that Evelyn isn't answering her phone? And second, why would she tell Marty that Evelyn should be home in exactly 30 minutes, unless she either knows precisely where Evelyn is right now or she's currently sending Evelyn a heads-up message to get home fast because her husband is looking for her? At this point, I'm sitting at my kitchen table with wedding planning stress already making me paranoid about everything, and now I'm analyzing a phone conversation like I'm some kind of relationship detective. Because when you're 2 weeks out from a wedding, every weird interaction feels like a potential disaster. You start questioning whether the florist's delayed email means they're going out of business and wondering if your best man's joke about bachelor parties was actually a coded message about your relationship doom. But this feels different than regular pre-wedding anxiety. This feels like I just watched my fiancé smoothly lie to her brother-in-law about his wife's location and then immediately start covering her tracks. The whole interaction had this practiced quality to it, like she's done this exact dance before. She didn't hesitate or stumble over her words or show any of the normal signs people show when they're making something up on the spot. I'm trying to process what I just witnessed while maintaining completely normal dinner conversation. She's telling me about her day at work and asking about my progress on the gate project, and I'm nodding and responding appropriately while my brain is running this whole other program in the background trying to figure out what the hell just happened. It's like trying to solve a puzzle while someone's asking you about weekend plans. The timing of this discovery is absolutely perfect in the worst possible way. Because, of course, family secrets decide to surface when you're already juggling vendor payments and finalizing guest counts and dealing with relatives who suddenly have opinions about everything, from your music choices to your menu options. When you're 2 weeks out from a wedding, you're supposed to be worried about whether it's going to rain and whether the photographer is going to show up on time. You're not supposed to be wondering if your future wife is helping her sister cover up an affair. I keep replaying the conversation in my head like I'm reviewing security footage. The way she answered so quickly without any pause to think about her response. The immediate follow-up text message that seemed planned rather than spontaneous. The casual tone she used that suggested this was just another routine phone call, rather than someone frantically searching for his missing wife. Every detail feels significant now that I'm viewing it through this lens of suspicion. Part of me wants to just ask her directly what that was all about, but I already know I won't get a straight answer. If my suspicions are correct and she's actively helping Evelyn hide something from Marty, then she's not going to suddenly confess the whole thing because I asked nicely. And if I'm completely wrong and this was some innocent misunderstanding, then I'm going to look like a paranoid crazy person who's been driven insane by wedding planning stress. So I'm stuck in this position where I want answers, but I know asking direct questions won't get them. Which means I need to figure out what's really going on through other methods. I need to do some investigating without tipping anyone off that I'm investigating. Basically, I need to become a detective, except instead of solving murders, I'm trying to figure out if my future sister-in-law is cheating on her husband and whether my fiancé is helping her do it. The more I think about it, the more convinced I become that something seriously wrong is happening here. This wasn't some innocent miscommunication or scheduling mix-up. This was a deliberate deception followed by immediate damage control. And now I'm officially adding amateur detective work to my already overwhelming pre-wedding to-do list because apparently planning a wedding wasn't complicated enough without family conspiracy theories. But here's the thing about witnessing something that doesn't make sense. Your brain doesn't immediately process the full implications. When your brain finally catches up, it takes a few seconds for everything to click into place. You know how sometimes your brain needs a minute to catch up with reality? Like when you witness something so unexpected that your mind just goes completely blank and then slowly starts piecing together what actually happened. That's exactly what happened to me sitting at my kitchen table with this glass of water. My brain was operating on about a 10-second delay, and suddenly all these alarm bells started going off at once. I keep replaying that phone conversation in my head obsessively. Every single word Marty said, and every single response my fiancé gave back. The way she said Evelyn just left here without any hesitation or stumble in her voice. The immediate grab for her phone to start texting. The confident prediction that Evelyn would be home in exactly 30 minutes like she was reading from some kind of script she'd memorized. The more I analyze this conversation, the more 3 key red flags line up like dominoes. First, my fiancé definitely told Marty that Evelyn was here when Evelyn absolutely was not here. Second, she immediately starts texting Evelyn right after Marty explained that Evelyn isn't responding to anyone's messages. Third, this weirdly specific 30-minute timeline she gave Marty about when Evelyn would be home. You don't just randomly estimate that someone will be somewhere in exactly 30 minutes unless you have inside information about their current location and travel plans. The funny thing is that wedding planning already requires detective-level organizational skills, so maybe I was accidentally training for this moment without realizing it. If I can track flower deliveries and coordinate vendor timelines, I can definitely catch a lie. You have to pay attention to every tiny detail because one missed deadline can destroy your entire schedule. Turns out those same skills work perfectly for analyzing suspicious family phone conversations and identifying inconsistencies in people's stories. My brain keeps switching between 2 possible explanations, and I can't decide which one I want to be true. Maybe I misheard something or misunderstood the context, and this is all just wedding stress, making me paranoid about perfectly innocent interactions. Like maybe Evelyn was supposed to stop by and didn't show up, and my fiancé was just covering for her sister's flaky behavior. Or maybe my worst fears are completely accurate and I just witnessed my future wife actively helping her sister deceive her husband about her whereabouts. Wedding stress makes you overthink literally everything anyway. When you're spending this much money on one day, every single interaction feels loaded with potential disaster. So now I'm applying that same level of suspicious analysis to family conversations, which is probably not healthy, but feels absolutely necessary. The growing certainty that this wasn't some innocent misunderstanding is making my stomach hurt. Each time I replay the conversation in my head, the pieces fit together more clearly, and none of those pieces create a picture I want to see. The smooth way she lied to Marty suggests this isn't the first time she's covered for Evelyn. The immediate text message response suggests to have some kind of system worked out. A specific timeline suggests she knows exactly where Evelyn is and what she's doing. Part of me wants to just ask my fiancé directly what's going on, but I already know that conversation won't go anywhere productive. If she's willing to lie to Marty about his wife's location, then she's definitely willing to lie to me about her involvement in whatever Evelyn is hiding. And if I'm completely wrong about this whole situation, then I'm going to sound like a paranoid crazy person who's been driven insane by vendor coordination stress. So instead of getting answers, I'm stuck in this mental spiral, creating increasingly dramatic explanations for what I witnessed. Maybe Evelyn is having an affair and my fiancé is helping her cover it up. Maybe Evelyn is involved in some kind of illegal activity and needs alibis. Maybe Evelyn is planning some kind of surprise for Marty and my fiancé is helping maintain the secret. Or maybe Evelyn just needed some space from her husband and asked her sister to buy her some time. I spent probably the next 5 hours running through every possible scenario I could think of, from innocent to absolutely horrible. Each explanation seemed more far-fetched than the last, but I couldn't stop my brain from creating new theories and testing them against what I observed. The innocent explanations required too many coincidences and assumptions. The horrible explanations fit the facts perfectly, but meant my fiancé was capable of sustained deception. My mind keeps coming back to the practice quality of her lie to Marty. She didn't pause to think about her response or show any of the normal tells people display when they're making something up. She answered his question like she was stating a simple fact rather than creating a fiction. That level of smooth deception suggests experience, and experience suggests this has happened before. The worst part is realizing that I can't trust my own fiancé to give me honest answers about her sister's behavior. If Evelyn is doing something wrong and my future wife is helping her hide it, then asking direct questions will just put her on defense mode and make her better at covering her tracks. I need to find out what's really happening without alerting anyone that I'm investigating. Which brings me to the absolutely ridiculous realization that amateur detective work is now officially part of my wedding planning process. Along with finalizing the catering menu and confirming the flower arrangements, I now need to figure out whether my future sister-in-law is cheating on her husband and whether my fiancé is an active participant in the deception. Because apparently planning a wedding wasn't complicated enough without adding family conspiracy theories to the mix. This is definitely not covered in any wedding planning guides I've read. They tell you how to handle difficult relatives and budget overruns and vendor cancellations, but nobody prepares you for the possibility that your future spouse might be helping their sibling destroy someone else's marriage just 2 weeks before your own wedding. By the time we went to bed that night, I knew sleep wasn't going to happen easily. My brain was running on overdrive, and I had this sick feeling that the only way to get real answers was going to require crossing some serious relationship boundaries. The midnight phone investigation. Around 1 a.m, I'm lying in bed staring at the ceiling while my fiancé sleeps peacefully next to me. We've always had an open phone policy where we know each other's passwords because we're supposedly adults with nothing to hide. Her phone is charging on the nightstand about 3 feet away from my increasingly paranoid brain, and I'm having this internal debate about relationship boundaries versus my desperate need to know what the hell is actually going on. But here I am seriously considering whether to violate that trust because my gut is telling me something is seriously wrong and my brain won't shut up about all the inconsistencies from that phone conversation. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And if there's ever been a desperate time, it's 2 weeks before your wedding, when you're questioning whether you're about to marry someone who helps their family members destroy other people's marriages. Wedding planning has already pushed me to my emotional limits with vendor deadlines and family politics and budget overruns. So adding detective work to that mix feels like the logical next step in this complete breakdown of normal life. I keep telling myself that if I'm wrong about this whole thing, then looking through her phone won't reveal anything suspicious and I can go back to worrying about whether the cake will arrive on time like a normal person. I wait until I'm absolutely certain she's deep asleep, and then I crept out of bed and unlocked her phone. My hands are actually shaking, which is ridiculous because I've used her phone plenty of times before to look up restaurant hours or check directions when my battery dies. But this feels completely different because I'm not looking for innocent information. I'm looking for evidence that might confirm my worst fears about the woman I'm supposed to marry in 14 days. I open her text messages and immediately see Evelyn's name at the top of the recent conversations list, which makes sense given the texting that happened right after the phone call with Marty. I tap on Evelyn's name and suddenly I'm looking at months worth of text messages between my fiancée and her sister that tell a story I really didn't want to read. The sick feeling in my stomach hits me like a physical punch because I'm finding exactly what I was afraid of but hoped I wouldn't. Technology makes it impossible to live in blissful ignorance anymore because everything leaves a digital trail and every lie gets preserved in text message form for future discovery. There's no plausible deniability when the evidence is sitting right there in black and white, with timestamps showing exactly when each deception occurred. Background research confirms what I'm seeing unfold across hundreds of messages. Evelyn has been having an affair for approximately 6 months with a coworker, and my fiancé has been actively helping her coordinate alibis and cover stories. These aren't just casual conversations either. These are detailed planning sessions about when and where Evelyn can meet this guy without getting caught by Marty. The worst part is reading how casual and matter-of-fact these conversations are, like they're planning a surprise party, instead of systematically lying to Marty about his wife's whereabouts. My fiancée isn't just passively aware of this affair. She's an active participant in making it possible. She's providing alibis and coordinating schedules and helping Evelyn figure out excuses for why she can't answer Marty's calls when she's with her affair partner. I keep scrolling and finding more evidence that makes this situation worse with each message I read. There are conversations about close calls while Marty almost caught Evelyn somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. There are discussions about what story to tell if Marty starts asking too many questions. There are even messages where my fiancé is giving Evelyn advice about how to act normal around Marty so he won't suspect anything. Reading through months of these conversations is making me feel physically sick because I'm realizing that my future wife has been living this double life for half a year. Every family dinner we've had with Marty and Evelyn, my fiancé, has been sitting there knowing that Evelyn was cheating on him and actively helping her get away with it. Every time Marty mentioned feeling like something was off with Evelyn, my fiancé stayed quiet and let him think he was imagining things. I start taking screenshots of the most damning conversations because apparently I'm now collecting evidence like I'm preparing for some kind of court case. Each screenshot feels like another nail in the coffin of my relationship because these aren't innocent messages that could be misinterpreted. These are crystal clear proof that my fiancé has been helping Evelyn destroy her marriage for months. The surreal quality of learning your future family's deepest secrets while sitting in darkness at 1 a.m. cannot be overstated. This is not how I imagined spending my pre-wedding time. I thought I'd be worrying about last-minute RSVPs and whether the weather would cooperate for outdoor photos. Instead, I'm documenting evidence of infidelity and wondering how many other family secrets I don't know about yet. Some of the messages include details about Evelyn's affair partner that make me want to throw the phone across the room. They talk about him like he's some kind of romantic hero instead of a guy who's helping a married woman cheat on her husband. There are discussions about expensive gifts he's bought Evelyn and romantic getaways they've taken together while Marty thinks his wife is visiting her sister or working late. The absolute worst messages are the ones where Evelyn and my fiancé make cruel jokes about Marty and how clueless he is about what's happening. They laugh about how trusting he is and how easy it is to fool him. Reading those messages makes me want to drive to Marty's house right now and tell him everything because no one deserves to be mocked by their wife and sister-in-law while being systematically betrayed. By the time I finish scrolling, through months of conversations, I'm holding a phone full of screenshots and the devastating confirmation that my wedding absolutely cannot happen. There's no way I can marry someone who's capable of this level of sustained deception and cruelty towards someone who trusts her completely. The emotional impact of discovering this betrayal is hitting me in waves, and I know I need to process exactly what I've uncovered before I can figure out my next move. 6 months of family lies revealed. The screenshots I'm taking tell a story that spans 6 solid months of calculated deception between my fiancé and Evelyn. What started in January as innocent conversations about a flirtatious coworker named Jake quickly escalated into detailed coordination sessions for a full-blown affair. By February, they're planning coffee dates that turn into lunch meetings and then afternoon encounters at Jake's apartment while Marty thinks Evelyn is shopping or visiting friends. The level of coordination required to pull this off is staggering. My fiancé becomes Evelyn's primary alibi provider, helping her figure out which days Marty will be working late so she can stay out longer. They discuss which restaurants Evelyn should claim she went to in case Marty checks credit card statements. And weekend getaways get disguised as work conferences or visits to sick relatives, with my fiancé providing detailed cover stories and even calling during these trips to keep their lies consistent. What makes my stomach turn are the messages where they mock Marty for being trusting and believing their lies. They laugh about how easy it is to fool him and make cruel jokes about his clueless nature. Evelyn calls Marty boring and predictable while praising Jake as exciting and spontaneous. My fiancé not only agrees, but actively encourages Evelyn to pursue happiness even if it means destroying her marriage. These aren't just adultery conversations, they're character assassination sessions against someone who's never done anything wrong except trust his wife and sister-in-law. The cruelty escalates over time as they refer to Marty as pathetic for not realizing what's happening under his nose. They joke about how he tries to be romantic with Evelyn while she's thinking about another man. The manipulation tactics they employ would make professional con artists proud. When Marty starts questioning inconsistencies in Evelyn's stories, my fiancé coaches her sister on how to act hurt that he doesn't trust her and turn his suspicions back on him as relationship problems. Recent messages show them planning how to handle Marty's increasing suspicions about Evelyn's behavior. He's been asking more questions about her whereabouts and expressing concern about their relationship. Instead of encouraging Evelyn to come clean or work on her marriage, my fiancé suggests they need to be more careful about their planning and maybe take a break from the affair until after our wedding. The casual tone they use while discussing someone's emotional destruction is absolutely chilling. The pattern of behavior revealed in these messages shows someone capable of sustained deception without any apparent guilt or remorse. My fiancé participates in mocking an innocent person while helping cause them emotional harm. She lies smoothly and consistently over months without showing any signs of internal conflict about her actions. This isn't someone having a momentary lapse in judgment. This is someone whose moral compass points in completely the wrong direction. What kills me is that I love this woman and was planning to spend my life with her. But now I'm seeing a side of her character that makes me question everything I thought I knew. How do you reconcile loving someone with discovering they're capable of participating in such calculated cruelty? How do you trust someone who can lie this smoothly for this long about something this serious? The timing of discovering your future in-laws' dysfunction right before officially joining the family is absolutely perfect in the worst possible way. I'm supposed to be worried about final headcount numbers and making sure the flowers arrive on time. Instead, I'm sitting in darkness reading evidence that my future wife has no problem destroying other people's lives for her sister's entertainment. Reading through months of these conversations makes me realize that wedding planning involves learning everyone's true colors. But this definitely wasn't covered in any of the guidebooks I've read. They tell you how to handle difficult relatives and budget overruns, but nobody prepares you for discovering that your future spouse has been actively helping destroy marriages for entertainment purposes. The foundation of our relationship has been built on my assumption that she was a fundamentally good person, and these messages prove that assumption was completely wrong. The woman I fell in love with either never existed or has been hiding this capacity for cruelty so well that I never saw it coming. Either way, the person I thought I was marrying isn't real. After reading through all this evidence, the realization hits me like a physical blow. By the end of those screenshots, I knew there was no way to marry someone who orchestrated this deception. But knowing what needs to happen and figuring out how to actually do it are two completely different problems, especially when you're 2 weeks away from a wedding that's already cost more money than most people spend on cars. The brother bombshell that complicates everything. Just when I thought this family drama couldn't get any more complicated, my fiancé drops another bombshell on me that creates a whole new layer of confusion and betrayal. After the police take Evelyn away, and we're sitting in our living room trying to process what just happened, she looks at me with tears in her eyes and asks why I've been sexting with some Instagram model named Mandy. I'm staring at her like she just asked me why I've been training dolphins in my spare time, because this accusation comes completely out of nowhere and makes absolutely no sense. She shows me screenshots of messages that are definitely not something I would ever write. The messages are crude and explicit and completely inappropriate for someone in a committed relationship, but they're coming from accounts associated with our computer, which makes the situation incredibly confusing. I'm looking at evidence of infidelity that I definitely didn't commit while trying to figure out how my name got attached to someone else's online activities. The realization hits me like a brick wall when I remember that my brother Carl stayed with us for a week last month while he was visiting from overseas. He used our home computer extensively during his visit because his laptop died, and he needed internet access for work and personal communication. The timeline of these messages aligns perfectly with his stay, which means I'm being blamed for my brother's questionable online behavior and digital entertainment choices. Family visits apparently come with hidden costs that nobody warns you about, including taking responsibility for your relatives' internet activities and their poor decision-making around social media interactions. Carl's week-long stay has resulted in me being accused of online infidelity just 2 weeks before my wedding, which adds another layer of relationship destruction to an already catastrophic situation. The fact that family dysfunction seems to spread through Wi-Fi networks and shared computer access creates problems I never anticipated when I offered him a place to stay. My fiancé has been harboring this grievance for weeks without saying anything directly to me about it, which explains some of the distance and tension I've been feeling lately but couldn't identify. She's been sitting on evidence of what she thought was my online affair, while simultaneously helping her sister cover up a real physical affair with her brother-in-law. The irony of her keeping secrets about my supposed infidelity while actively participating in actual infidelity creates this twisted parallel that makes my head spin. The detective work required to prove my innocence involves going through browser histories and login timestamps and account information to demonstrate that I wasn't even home during most of the conversations with this Mandy person. Wedding planning teaches you organizational skills, but apparently it also prepares you for forensic computer analysis when family members use your technology for their personal entertainment and then leave you to deal with the consequences. Scrolling through months of browser history reveals that Carl was accessing multiple dating and social media platforms during his stay, including Instagram accounts and messaging apps that I never use. The digital trail shows late-night activity when I was either at work or asleep, which helps establish that someone else was using our computer for purposes that had nothing to do with legitimate internet browsing or work-related activities. The frustration of taking blame for someone else's poor choices reaches a boiling point when I realize that Carl's online activities have been used as ammunition against me during arguments about trust and commitment. My fiancée has been questioning my loyalty based on evidence of behavior that I didn't engage in while she was actively helping destroy someone else's marriage. The complete backwards nature of this situation makes me want to throw computers out the window. Wedding planning is supposed to reveal compatibility issues and family dynamics, but nobody prepares you for discovering that your relatives' internet habits can destroy your relationship reputation. The fact that I'm being held responsible for my brother's digital wandering while my fiancé participates in real-world deception creates this surreal disconnect between perception and reality that feels like some kind of twisted psychological experiment. The international phone call confrontation with Carl happens at 2 in the morning because time zones make family drama even more complicated when relatives live on different continents. I'm calling him from my kitchen while my fiancé sleeps upstairs and explaining that his online activities during his visit have created serious problems for my relationship. The conversation starts with confusion on his end because he apparently forgot that using someone else's computer leaves digital evidence. Carl admits that he's been struggling with intimacy issues in his marriage to Karen and used online interactions as an outlet for frustrations he couldn't address directly with his wife. He explains that their relationship has been strained for months and that he felt rejected and isolated, which led him to seek connection through social media and messaging platforms. The conversation reveals marriage problems I had no idea existed and explains why his visit seemed more stressed than usual. The complexity of his situation becomes clear when he describes feeling trapped between his desire to fix his marriage and his need for some kind of emotional or physical validation that he wasn't getting at home. He talks about performance anxiety and communication breakdown with Karen that made him feel like seeking attention elsewhere was his only option. The explanation doesn't excuse his behavior, but it provides context that makes his actions more understandable if not acceptable. Carl tells me he stopped the online activities and started marriage counseling with Karen, which means my decision about whether to expose his behavior could potentially destroy progress they've made in rebuilding their relationship. He's also taking medication for anxiety and depression related to their marital problems, which adds another layer of medical complexity to this family situation that I'm completely unequipped to handle. I debated exposing Carl's actions, but knew it could unravel his marriage and hurt his kids. The fact that my brother claims to be actively working on his marriage through professional help makes exposing his past online behavior feel potentially destructive to genuine progress. But staying silent means accepting blame for behavior I didn't engage in while my own relationship falls apart. The interconnected nature of family dysfunction means that one person's poor choices create ripple effects that damage multiple relationships in unexpected ways. Carl's online activities have contributed to the breakdown of my engagement, while his marriage apparently struggles with its own set of intimacy and communication problems. The web of secrets and accusations spreads through our family faster than anyone can contain or control the damage. By this point, I'm starting to realize that everyone in this family has been keeping secrets from everyone else, and I'm the only person who seems surprised by any of this. The pattern of deception runs so deep that I'm beginning to wonder if I ever really knew any of these people at all. My fiancée clearly has her own complicated relationship with truth that goes beyond just helping her sister cover up an affair. The people-pleaser revelation. 2 days after the wedding cancellation, my fiancé hands me a lengthy handwritten letter that looks like some kind of psychological manifesto written by someone who's been carrying secrets for decades. She tells me this letter explains everything about why she helped Evelyn cover up the affair and why she made all the choices that led to our relationship exploding 2 weeks before our wedding. I'm looking at this stack of notebook paper covered in her careful handwriting and wondering if I'm about to read a confession or some kind of elaborate justification for behavior that destroyed multiple relationships. The letter starts with childhood stories about growing up with Evelyn as her older sister and how Evelyn bullied her constantly from the time they were little kids. She learned early that keeping Evelyn happy was the key to avoiding conflict and emotional pain, developing a pattern of prioritizing other people's needs over her own feelings and opinions. Reading through page after page of childhood trauma and family dysfunction helps me understand how someone becomes a chronic people pleaser, but it doesn't excuse participating in the systematic destruction of someone's marriage. The letter explains the psychological routes of her behavior, but it also reveals that our entire 6-year relationship was built on her telling me what she thought I wanted to hear instead of sharing her actual thoughts and feelings about anything important. The most disturbing revelation in this letter is that my fiancé has been acting like a mirror for our entire relationship, reflecting back whatever she thought would make me happy instead of being an actual person with her own opinions and desires. She admits that she rarely expressed disagreement with my decisions because she was afraid I might disapprove of her or find her difficult to be around. Some people are so good at being agreeable that they completely disappear, and apparently I've been engaged to someone who mastered this skill. Every memory of our relationship takes on a different meaning when I realize that her enthusiastic agreement with my restaurant choices and vacation plans and career decisions was actually just people-pleasing behavior designed to avoid any possibility of conflict. She wasn't sharing my interests. She was performing the role of perfect girlfriend while hiding her actual personality somewhere so deep that maybe even she doesn't know what her real preferences are anymore. The letter describes how helping Evelyn with the affair felt like returning to familiar childhood patterns where her job was to keep Evelyn happy regardless of the cost to other people or her own moral compass. She writes about feeling trapped between her fear of Evelyn's anger and her knowledge that what they were doing was wrong. But instead of choosing to do the right thing, she chose to protect herself from Evelyn's disapproval by participating in the deception. Wedding planning is supposed to reveal compatibility between two people, but apparently it can also reveal complete personality disorders that have been carefully hidden behind years of people-pleasing behavior. The most agreeable people often harbor the most complicated secrets because they've spent their whole lives suppressing their authentic selves to avoid conflict. My fiance's letter reveals someone who's been so busy being what other people wanted that she lost track of who she actually is underneath all the performance. The strange thing about reading this psychological confession is feeling both angry and sympathetic at the same time, because I can understand how childhood trauma creates these patterns while still being furious about the choices she made as an adult. She's trapped by her own psychology, but she's also responsible for the harm caused by her inability to stand up to her sister or be honest with the people who love her. Understanding why someone behaves badly doesn't make the behavior acceptable. What kills me is realizing that I dated a reflection, not a person. For 6 years, I've been having a relationship with my own expectations and preferences instead of connecting with another human being who has her own thoughts and feelings and opinions about the world. The letter explains why our relationship always felt slightly off, even though we never had major fights or obvious compatibility problems. There was this underlying sense that something was missing, but I couldn't identify what it was because she was so good at anticipating what I wanted and giving it to me. The absence of conflict wasn't because we were perfectly matched, it was because one of us wasn't actually participating as a real person. She writes about feeling like she was living someone else's life and going through the motions of being engaged without any real sense of what she wanted from marriage or whether she actually wanted to be married at all. The people-pleasing behavior that started as childhood survival strategy became so automatic that she lost the ability to access her own desires and make authentic choices about her future. Reading this letter provides relief because it finally explains all the weird inconsistencies and emotional distance that I could never quite understand in our relationship. The puzzle pieces fall into place when you realize that one person has been performing a role instead of being themselves. The foundation of our relationship was built on performance rather than genuine connection, which explains why I always felt like something important was missing. The most tragic part of this whole situation is that she's been so busy being what she thought other people wanted that she never learned how to be herself or form authentic relationships based on mutual understanding and respect. 6 years of what I thought was love was actually just very skilled people-pleasing combined with my own inability to recognize that I was dating a mirror instead of a person. After reading this psychological explanation and childhood trauma analysis, the conclusion becomes crystal clear that calling off this wedding was absolutely the right decision. You can't build a marriage with someone who doesn't know who they are underneath all the people-pleasing behavior. The foundation has to be two actual people, not one person and their reflection. This letter confirmed what I already suspected about our relationship's shaky foundation and validated every instinct that told me something was fundamentally wrong. Sometimes the most stressful situations reveal truth that might otherwise stay buried for years. Here's the ironic truth about wedding planning stress that nobody tells you. All that pressure and chaos and financial anxiety actually works like some kind of truth serum that forces people to show you who they really are when everything falls apart. If I hadn't been paying attention to every weird detail because I was already stressed about vendor deadlines and family coordination, I might have missed that phone conversation completely. The wedding planning nightmare that nearly drove me insane actually saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. When wedding stress becomes a lie detector, trust your gut. Sometimes that chaos is saving your life. If you've ever had to call off a wedding or discovered family secrets during your own planning nightmare, drop your story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more wild family dramas.